Upfront and Outspoken with Bob Williams. If you love the Constitution,
man is not free unless government is limited.
if you love freedom,
As government expands, liberty contracts.
if you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe America is still the greatest nation on earth, then get ready for an experience you'll never forget. This is Upfront and Outspoken. Here's your host, Bob Williams.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
And welcome back. This is Upfront Outspoken. I'm your host, Bob Williams, and this is my weekly rant. That's right. I'm going to be covering a couple topics because both of them deserve some coverage today. The first is regarding what the hell is wrong with people today. And what I mean by that is we are seeing all across the country demonstrations going on because you have a few cops who are bad cops do wrong things. And yet everybody out there is blaming all cops. What the hell's wrong with you people? A few bad apples are souring everything, are spoiling it for all the good cops out there. You people forget there are plenty of good cops out there. They do plenty of good deeds. And yet you seem to want to focus on the few bad apples. You know, I agree, there are bad apples out there. I'm not going to deny that. But I'm seeing more and more and more and more demonstrations out there, and you are riling up people against our law enforcement. You know, and you're categorizing all cops as bad. And some of you will say, well, yeah, he's a good cop now, but he's going to turn bad later. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. There are plenty of good cops. There are more good cops than there are bad cops. There are more good decisions than bad decisions made by our law enforcement. But yet everybody out there right now in the ruckuses that are going on in Chicago, New York, out in L.A., are so inclined to condemn our police forces. You forget. They have a job to do. And I have always said, and I will always say on my program, the suspect, the person who's pulled over because of busted taillight or whatever, makes a conscious decision if they're going to resist or comply. You resist, and well, what happens in some cases happens. Although it might be a bad cop on the other end, such as the case with recently, But there are times bad decisions by cops take over, and those cops need to be punished. I'm not going to say they don't need to be punished, though. Whoever says, Bob, you're siding with the cops all the time. No, I don't. If you got a bad cop, he needs to be gone. Simple. But everybody out there, because of all these demonstrations, you're building it up in your psyche to take a defensive posture, sometimes offensive posture against our law enforcement. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen how belligerent some people are when it comes to a traffic stop. One gal went so far as because a police officer was wearing sunglasses because it was a very bright sunny day, she refused to cooperate with him because he would not take off his sunglasses. How belligerent is that? I mean, come on. Do you take your if it is a very bright, sunshiny day, do you take off your sunglasses when you talk to somebody? Some of you may say yes. Others of you will say, no, if the sun's coming in my eyes, I'm going to keep my sunglasses on. Well, that's the same case with that officer in that one video I've seen. The sun, you could see reflecting directly off of his sunglasses. And yet this gal in this car who was stopped by the police officer got extremely belligerent, would not cooperate with the officer because he refused to take off his sunglasses. And yet it was the second time she had been stopped at that same point by, evidently, by another officer, according to her. What is it? What is it? Why are you people being such an ignoramus that you refuse to comply? You are so willing to resist, to be offensive. Do you not expect the police officer to turn around and say, hey, yeah, guess what, dude? Give me your driver's license, give me your registration, and then keep you there longer. And if you do decide to resist, don't you think for one damn minute you're not going to get cuffed and stuffed, as they say? Give me a break. Give me a break. You have, at that moment when the officer pulls you over, you have the time from the officer gets out of his squad car, walks up to your vehicle to decide, okay, I'm going to comply. I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going home. Or I'm going to resist, I'm going to run, and I'm going to get shot. Either with a taser, or if it appears that you have a weapon, you're going to get shot and killed. It's a conscious decision you make to resist or be offensive to the officer. But like I'm saying, there are more good cops out there than there are bad. And, you know, I have to commend those officers who sit back, take the name calling, and simply go about their business of writing the ticket, writing a citation, running the check, and they don't do anything. It takes a lot of restraint to do that. And in that respect, we all can learn a viable lesson. Use restraint. Don't be stupid. Don't be an ignoramus. Common sense has to prevail here, but all these demonstrations, all the rhetoric we hear from the Al Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons, attorneys, we're hearing the rhetoric. They all come back to Ferguson. They're trying to associate every single shooting with Ferguson. Since when did Ferguson become the hub of every shooting? It isn't. Every case is different. Every case is different. And there are police who are brought up on charges. There's no doubt about it. As in the case recently, the officer in South Carolina is brought up on murder. The reserve officer here in Tulsa is being brought up on second-degree manslaughter. There are cases across the country where officers are indeed being charged. Colorado, Arizona. So, the justice is coming around. But for you to demonstrate against all police officers, you're inciting, you're instigating the emotions in people to resist, to look at a cop as the bad guy. But the next time you really need a cop, the next time you get on your phone and you dial 911, what would you do if that cop says, I ain't going? What if every cop in the country says, I ain't going? What would you do? And it's because of the mentality of people today. We're being laid out all this hate for cops. And I keep telling you folks, not all cops are bad. There are more good cops than there are bad cops. But yet, it only takes these inciters, these rabble-rousers, to instill an emotion in people that infuse our dislike, our hatred towards the men and women who are sworn to serve and protect. And then you look at every cop as the bad guy. He's the guy with the twin horns. But what about that woman who had a baby on the highway, couldn't make it to the hospital, and it was a police officer who delivered it? Or how about that family that was completely homeless, and the police department got together, not only got her a home for her and her family, but also helped them get a job, put food on the table? What about those cops? Do we ever hear anything about them? A little bit, and then it's a bygone issue. We forget about the good cops. We do. We forget about the good cops. We're so willing to look at the bad cops and then categorize every cop as a bad cop. So before you make that 911 call, before you ask for the assistance of a police officer, remember one thing. Not all cops are bad. What would you do? What would you do? And I have to say this again. What the hell would you do is if every single cop decided, I'm not going to go out on that 911 call because a woman's being beat up by her husband. I'm not going to go out on that 911 call because of the accident and I could save lives. I'm not going to go out on that 911 call because a family is being held hostage by a gunman or someone toting a knife. I'm not going to go out on that 911 call about the burglary in this business. What the hell are you going to do then? Think about it. What the hell are you going to do? Then your whole attitude about cops might change. I pray that never happens to you. I really do. Or a woman being raped. What if the cop decided, I'm not going to go? What if that happened? Then how are you going to look at cops? But yet, you look back at it, and these cops would have the mentality that, we're all bad according to the public's eye. So if that's the case, let's just withhold all of our services. What kind of a chaos do you think this country would be in? This country would be in total chaos. And yet there are those who insist on rabble-rousing, and I'm going to call it that. They insist on rabble-rousing. They insist on bringing people up and saying, guess what? Because of a few bad apples, we're going to judge every single man and woman who is sworn to serve and protect, who wear the uniform of a police officer. We're going to hold them in the worst regard we possibly can, and then therefore everybody that is stopped by a cop is going to resist or be offensive. I've seen that. You just have to Google it. You just have to go to Facebook and you see it. People are getting this mentality. I said earlier about that woman who refused to cooperate with a cop because he didn't take his sunglasses off, and you could tell the sun was beating in this poor guy's eyes. He was just asking her a couple of questions, and boy, did she throw a temper tantrum. What kind of a message is she relaying? Ask yourself that. What kind of a message is she relaying? And she had the audacity, and this is the thing. She has the audacity to not only video record it off of her phone, she posts it. She's proud of it. What an ignoramus. I would, if I was that police officer, I would have cited her for foul mouth, or something. I would have cited her for resisting, because she was doing everything she could to instigate this cop into doing something. The cop is standing there as cool, calm, collected as ever. So what did she get out of it? She got her personal rant because a police officer did not take off his sunglasses and she refused to cooperate. What kind of a crap is that? But that's what you're seeing now. You know, I don't deny everybody has the right to video record any encounter you have with a police officer. You do have that right. Or if you see something, you have the right to record it if it involves a police officer. You do have that right. It's a right guaranteed in all 50 states. But when you video record your own stupidity and then post it, hoping to get sympathy for you, forget it. You're not going to have my sympathy. I'm going to feel sorry for the cop that's got to listen to you. And like I said, there's a few bad cops out there. I'm not going to say there isn't. There's a few bad cops out there. And those are the ones that need to be taken off the street. I'm not going to say that they shouldn't be. They need to be weeded out of our police departments. No ifs, ands, buts, hows, whys, anything. They need to be gone. They need to be out of those police departments. But when you see demonstrations across the country and they categorize, they generalize all police officers as bad, that's where I got to take issue. Because not all cops are bad. Give me a break, folks. Not all cops are bad. You get a couple, no doubt about it. You get a couple, but not all cops are bad. So give it up. Give it up. And remember, the other thing I brought up time and time again, when you are pulled over, when an officer stops you, you have that moment's decision to say, I'm going to flee or I'm going to comply. And I don't care who you are. If you're pulled over on the side of the road by an officer, it takes time for that police officer to radio in that he stopped you and then leave his patrol car to walk up to your vehicle. That is plenty of time for you to decide, am I going to comply or am I going to run? Do yourself a favor. Comply. Comply. You may say this is a bogus pullover. You may say all of that. Well, that's well and good. Nothing else. Video record the your encounter with the police officer. Live to fight another day. Don't be an Eric Gardner. Don't be a Michael Brown. Don't be some of these other clowns who decide they're going to resist and end up dead. Don't be. Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Eric Gardner had the opportunity, although I do not agree with the method that the officers used. The chokehold is illegal, and it resulted in the death of Eric Gardner. I don't agree with that. I do not agree that the officers should have walked on that. I do not agree with that. But Eric Gardner had the opportunity to comply, and he resisted. Michael Brown had the opportunity to comply. He resisted. And look where they are. 6 feet underground. 6 feet underground. So I stress this, and I will stress this over and over and over again. You may not like the fact that you are being pulled over. You may not like the fact that you are being questioned by a police officer. But do yourself, your family, your friends, whatever a favor. Don't resist. Don't fight. Don't flee. Comply and live to fight another day. It's simple. How unsimple is that? But yet you're seeing all across the country demonstrations that all cops are bad. Well, I got news for you folks. They're not. Not all cops are. And I've said it. You do have a few bad apples. I am not going to deny that. There are a few bad apples in the system, and they do need to be rooted out. And we need to get them out. We need to get those people out. So please do yourselves a favor before you go out and acting stupid. Just learn that if you comply, you're going to live the fight another day. And with that, it is time for me to get out of here. Stay tuned, because coming up right after NPR News, Ed Till will be with you till 4 o'clock. Until tomorrow, 6 a.m., this is Bob Williams. Take care of yourselves.